Hey guys, my name is Josh Baer, founder of the Coherence Report. I actually just want to react to a really interesting news story. We're talking about the NVIDIA announcement. If you're new here, I am a former D-Wave insider. I have been following the quantum computing industry for a long time. I do a lot of AI engineering, and I have decided to come here, present to you guys because I run a channel that's dedicated to quantum computing. And essentially, in this channel, we are explaining how the industry works, how the technology works, but without any of the clickbait hype. One thing you also know is that we are very skeptical of D-Wave. If you're interested in information on that, please visit our website, coherence.report. All right, so let's talk about the announcement. Last week, NVIDIA announced its Ising toolkit, which is a set of open source AI tools. They're designed to make quantum computers more reliable and easier to operate. Before we start talking about what this does, I want to make clear what it is not. All right, to be very clear, this announcement has absolutely nothing to do with quantum AI. Okay, case closed. Quantum AI refers to the usage of quantum computers to run an AI model, but it is not referring to the usage of AI to manage a quantum computer. And the fact is, there's so many people out there on social media just saying how this was about quantum AI. It really just shows how people are out there spreading misinformation, and for either because they're ignorant of it or they're just trying to push clickbait. That being said, I don't want to downplay the NVIDIA announcement because there's actually some really fascinating things in this release. And that's why I made this video. I wrote an extensive article about this. We're going to go into technical detail, but we're going to make sure it's understandable and accessible to people who are not engineers and who are not scientists. If you like this level of content, we have a whole website about this. Go to our website. We have articles, videos, investor reports. You find everything, no spin, just understandable analysis. All right, so let's talk about the tools. The tools that were announced last week, you have Ising calibration and Ising decoding. One of those automates the process of tuning the quantum processor, and the other is automating something called error correction. For today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a few minutes about why these are important. We're going to talk about how they're using AI, and we're going to talk about what this means for the future of quantum computing. All right, so let's start off with Ising calibration. Calibration is going to refer to the process of tuning a quantum processor before it can actually run any computation. You see, every quantum processor behaves slightly differently. So even if you have the same brand of computer like an IonQ or a Rigetti, they're all going to act differently, even though they're the same computer and same brand. That probably doesn't make sense, but what you have to understand is that we're talking about tiny things, for example, individual atoms. And at that level, the rules of physics just don't really apply. These things are just so sensitive to light or temperature. Basically, they're sensitive to things that you can't see or predict. And because of that, you have to do calibration at the beginning of the computation, but also during the process of running the computation. And you do that because you want to ensure that you're getting consistent results when you're doing computation. All right, let's think about this like an analogy. Think about calibration like owning a piano. So everyone has owned one before. They know that these things go out of tune just through being played. And what you need to do is you're making sure before you start playing, the point of tuning is that you want to make sure that each key that you press corresponds to the exact frequency. And if it doesn't, you have to pay someone to come in. They're going to test each string. They're going to adjust the tension. That's for a piano. Imagine if the piano actually had 10,000 strings and every string affected the string next to it. And those strings have to be tuned, by the way, while you're playing on the piano. That's the equivalent of running a calibration in quantum computing, and that's why it's just so complicated to do these things. What Ising is going to do is it replaces the time-consuming manual process of an engineer and operator doing calibration, and what it's doing is it's using an AI agent, and because you're using the AI agent, you're able to tune faster and make it more scalable. This is great. This is a huge leap forward for quantum computing, but that's very different from quantum AI because the AI is actually not being run on the quantum computer. It's being run on actually a NVIDIA GPU, which is one of the reasons why they're doing it. Now, let's talk about the second tool, which is Ising decoding. Ising decoding is a tool that is designed to do something called qubit error correction. What does that mean? Qubits are fragile. They're constantly making errors, again, for reasons that you can't see or predict. And so what you're doing is you're using something called a decoder to look at the errors and try to fix what's going on. Anyone interested in learning more about the future of error correction, which is actually the future of quantum computing, what you want to do is go on our website and look for an article, 99%. The links are actually in the description there. And so the way that decoding works right now, manually, is you're reading something called an error fingerprint on the qubit. So think about it as clues that are left behind about what went wrong, like a footprint that you leave in the mud, so you know exactly what kind of shoe the guy was wearing. And then you work backwards to determine what the cause is. What Ising is doing, or at least the tool that was released, it's using an AI model to automate the decoding process, and it's analyzing patterns then in how those errors evolve over time. This is actually a huge deal. Read our article to understand exactly why this is such a big leap forward. But an analogy here, think about weather forecasting. Long time ago, weather was just what's the temperature today and what's the temperature for tomorrow. But modern forecasting, when you start incorporating AI, pattern recognition, you're able to automate these massive models. And so what was happening is now you're able to incorporate things like pressure systems or changes in temperature gradients, wind patterns, and you get better results, you get better forecasting. Same exact thing with what Ising is doing with quantum computing, is they're using an AI model to help with the decoding process and make it better, faster, scalable. Again, this is really interesting stuff for quantum computing, but has absolutely nothing to do with quantum AI. And, one of the problems I see is that the people in the media that are reporting this thing, they just don't understand technical press releases. So the average reporter, they're going to see the word AI. They see it printed over and over and over again, 10 times the announcement. They see quantum computing right next to it. They attach it to AI, and then they go out and tell everyone, hey, NVIDIA just proved that quantum AI is real. And I understand why someone like Yahoo or Reuters might do this, but really the worst culprits are the people who know better. They know the industry. So, for example, this guy right here, this guy knows the industry and he has a responsibility to be truthful. But the problem is all these guys, all the information out there, these people are just fishing for clicks, including D-Wave CEO Alan Barrett, who clearly got confused by the announcement.
So I think that quantum AI, quantum machine learning is going to be extremely important. In fact, at D-Wave, we have the first commercial use of our quantum computers in support of generative AI.
As I've said, there's a ton of noise out there. You want to make sure that you want to come to our website, coherence.report. There you're going to get real information about technology, about the industry, without any hype. If you're watching this on YouTube, just make sure to subscribe, leave us a comment below, and I will respond. Our website is coherence.report. You want to go to Insights for our free articles. We actually have a full-length article detailing the Ising announcement and what it really means for the future of quantum computing. I think I put a lot of effort into this. Love any feedback on it, and I appreciate you guys doing this with me.